And I was like, when that happened, did you think about divorce? And the first thing anyone said was my mom was like, oh, well, first of all, we're not married. Second of all, we're in it for the long haul.
Welcome to Should We Get Married? I'm Max Jarecki.
I'm Emily Carter, and we are trying to figure out in this podcast if we are going to get legally married versus stay dating forever.
What's up with people playing it so cool these days?
Today's guests are 12-year-old Esme and her dad, PF. PF and his partner Maya have never been married, so we chat with PF and Esme, their daughter, about what their unusual family structure is like. And we get to ask them all sorts of questions that we've been dying to know the answer to. Emily, how do we know PF?
PF is our Rolfer, and I'm just going to get into what the hell that is. Rolfing is something that my mom brought into our life, and I think it's described as like fascial massage, and it's quite intense and like uncomfortable. And we had this Rolfer in New York that we really liked, but she lives in New York, obviously, and we live in San Francisco. And so she recommended me to PF, and then randomly, a friend of mine, Molly, was also seeing PF. So he's a body worker, and we've both gone to him for different sort of physical issues.
Emily and I are getting more and more Bay Area by the day. Every day we live here. So yes, we have a body worker. Yes, he practices Rolfing. We mouth tape. What are the other sort of optimize-y? We employ the services. We employ the services of professionals who tweak, poke, and prod us until we are our best selves. One of them is our Rolfer.
Yeah, I went to a psychic once. So
Emily did go to a psychic, and
she told me I was a master soul.
Yeah, which has really stuck in Emily's craw ever since then. Every time she does something, she's like, actually, I'm a master soul. So PF he doesn't have opinions on sort of what type of soul we have, but he does know how to access our psoas muscles. And in the course of me getting a bodywork session, I actually started talking to him about our podcast, and he said, oh, well, you know that me and Maya, my partner, she and I have never been married, and we have a 12-year-old daughter named Esme, who's amazing. And that's sort of what led us to be here, having this interview. Emily, why did we want to do this angle, like the PF, Esme, Maya angle? They are unmarried, yet they have kids. What was appealing to you about that?
I feel one of the most frequent things we hear is, yeah, you can get married or not get married. It's up to you. Doesn't really matter. But when you have kids, it's really important that you're married. That's good for like the family unit. And I think we've pushed those people and not really felt like there was a conclusive answer. So we wanted to kind of get to the bottom of that question. And obviously this is anecdote, not data. And this is one family doing it their way. But I think we got to ask a lot of the questions that we've been asking ourselves, which is like, is it better for a kid, for your parents to be married? How does that impact how you look at your family structure, how you see your parents, how you feel compared to your other classmates or people your age? So we got to ask Esme all of that and more.
Yeah.
I super loved this chat, and I loved Esme. I thought that something I had a hypothesis about and got proven is that she's like totally her own person, kind of marches to the beat of her own drum and feels wildly mature in some ways and then like wildly and beautifully childlike in all the right ways. I think it's just a testament to like kind of your parents doing it their own thing and letting her be exactly who she needs to be. And sometimes like school and structures like that can sort of beat someone into a style of kid that's not exactly them. And I just found her very free and unlocked, which I loved.
Yeah, she's freaking awesome. And the love that they all have as a family is very palpable. So I feel like our main questions of being unmarried, like, did that mess up the family vibe? That's totally answered here in a way that feels really satisfying. So thank you, PF. Thank you, Esme. Let's roll the tape. So Esme, tell us a little bit about Esme.
It's weird to talk about him as PF, but I am PF's daughter. I'm 12 years old. I go to an online project-based school, which I love. I like to do crochet, which I have some of that next to me, and I'll be selling that at my school's holiday market, which I'm excited about. I also do aerial arts, which is like gymnastics in, not the sky, but it's like on hoops and slings and things like that. And I'm really excited to be here and to talk about this with you guys.
Amazing. Thank you, Esme. Why did you say yes to being on this podcast?
Is this something you feel like you have a lot of opinions about?
I don't know if I have strong opinions. I feel like I have some things that listeners would find interesting, but I don't know
Mhm.
about strong opinions.
That makes sense. PF, I would love to hear some more about you and Maya and the choice to not get married. It sounds like you never got around to it, I heard you say, but was it like a deliberate decision?
It really, more than a choice, it was never a high priority for us. I actually did propose to her, and first she said, I'll have to think about it. I proposed again, and she said yes. But at that point, we were already planning on having a child. We wanted to buy a house. And so the house project and the child project just kind of took up all of our time, and we just never saw that it really mattered to actually get married. I mean, for all intents and purposes, we're in it for the long haul, and it feels like what I would assume a marriage feels like. So going through the actual official process and having the paper just was never a priority.
And when you say it feels like you're in it for the long haul, how does that look here? Did you make vows to each other? Do you have conversations as if you're planning for a long storied life together? Like, how does that actually?
That's a great idea. We should do vows. We've told each other that we're committed to each other, and it's really just about the commitment.
It sounds like Maya has European parents.
Yes. Her parents only got married because they needed to on a technicality. And, a lot of European couples don't get married and they still stay together for life. And so it's kind of more normalized over there.
Yeah, this is something me and Maxim talk about. Is like there's not really anything pushing us toward marriage. We don't have like parental pressure or like religious pressure. It's not something either of us have like dreamed of for our whole lives necessarily. So it's like, should we just do it if there's a bureaucratic reason to, or some like roadblock that we bump into, or do we want to make an active choice not to?
Right. We never had any reason to. Plus, I think growing up, I knew so many marriages that ended in divorce that I don't really have great feelings about marriage in general.
That's sad. I never thought about that. That's really
No,
sad.
it's the 80s.
Has not being married, I'm sure it's affected your life, but can you tell us about some of the pros and cons? Ways it's been delightful, ways it's been challenging?
Yeah. I mean, it hasn't really affected it negatively at all. Sometimes it's a little confusing for people to get it that we're not married. And then sometimes, like if it's somebody that we don't know at all and we're referring to each other as my wife or her as my husband just to make things easier, so people are like, who is this person?
Yeah, I feel like Max and I already do that. I was in the ER once in Puerto Rico, and they like just where it's kind of a conservative country in many ways. And I just said that was my husband, so he could be in the room with me as I was getting stitches.
Right.
There's just like a certain style of person that you're talking to. They're not going to understand the intricacies of it. So just give them the traditional framework.
Yeah. Esme, I think that it was you that mentioned it. Hearing your mom, when she's talking to people like on Facebook Marketplace, refer to your dad.
Yeah, so she buys like a lot of things on Facebook Marketplace or wherever, and when she's talking to people, like I remember one time she was also at the garage picking up the car or something, and she often refers to my dad as like her husband because just that's easier, and it just, I don't know if it just comes out of her, if it's a conscious decision to call him that. I don't know.
When you hear that, does that like bump in your mind for you? Do you notice that? Or you hear it so often, they go back and forth between all the terminology?
Oh, absolutely. When I was little, I used to giggle so hard because it was just not a thing that made sense.
So what do they usually say when they're referring to each other?
Usually they say my partner.
Yeah. So for you, my partner, quote unquote, is like a much more normalized phrase than my husband or my wife. You've heard that like 100 times more.
Not necessarily, but my partner feels more normal in the context of my parents.
Yeah.
Like my husband or my wife, in any other situation, I'd just be like, okay, that's her husband.
It makes you laugh when it's actually about your parents because it's
because it's just so
different.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
When was the first time you noticed that they were different as a couple?
Yeah. So I wasn't that young. I think I was 8, probably. I was in the car with my parents. It was really dark, so you can't see anyone, but you can hear. We're talking about my dad sleeping at his office because he made a joke saying, oh, what if we just stop at my office and I'll sleep there? And I was like, have you ever done that before? And it was like, yeah, one time when me and Mama had a really bad fight. And I was like, when that happened, did you think about divorce? And the first thing anyone said was my mom was like, oh, well, first of all, we're not married. And my dad was like, second of all, we're in it for the long haul. And then he chuckled or something.
Sounds about right.
That's really nice. That's really nice. Very sweet. What's a nice memory to have? You know, something that we've heard from some people, oh, like if you want to make your children feel like they are in a really stable environment, home environment where the parents are not going to separate, then they need to be legally married. And I'm curious, Esme, have you ever felt that your parents were more likely to separate because they're not legally married?
When I was a little bit older, I think I was 9 or 10, they were having a fight about something, and I wrote in my journal, oh, my parents are fighting right now, and I'm really worried that because they're not married, like if they separated, it wouldn't feel like a big thing, essentially, because they would just break up. There wouldn't be any legal papers, anything, like nothing at all, and that'd be the end of it.
And like, did you continue feeling that? Is that something that you feel to this day?
No, I don't feel like that anymore.
Esme, how do you feel about your like just asking someone's asking on the street, "Hey, your parents aren't married. How do you feel about that?" Like, do you have an opinion on that?
Like starting when I learned, I don't know when, but when I kind of learned that they weren't married when I started to really understand it, I really wanted them to get married, and I still do, but not because I felt any difference in their relationship, but because I thought weddings are super fun, and I wanted to be the flower girl, and I just wanted to be in this big fun party, and I had read like 1,000,002 books and watched shows and watched movies about weddings all over the place, weddings, and I was like, weddings are fun. Why won't you have one?
So it was kind of about the wedding and the party and the
Yeah,
like,
definitely. It was about
funness
the
of that
party.
gathering more
Absolutely.
than like the lifelong commitment.
Yeah.
Calling it that. PF, something that comes up a lot in conversations is like the last names of it all, the last name situation.
Yeah,
I don't know what Esme's last name is.
My last name is complicated.
it's her mom's name. And we deliberately gave her Maya's name because I don't really like my last name that much. And I think I've met one other family where the child has the mom's name instead of the dad's. I can't remember now who it is, but it's pretty rare. But I'm okay with that. You know, I've never wanted to be normal in that way. So
Did it feel like a statement of any kind, or it was just like, we just prefer this name and that's it?
yeah, we both just preferred that name. Yeah, no statement.
Do you feel that you have a part of you that is interested in going against the grain?
Yes.
People really assume that I have my dad's last name.
When you hear that, does that register for you as like weird?
Yeah, it does. Well, because it's not my name.
Do you feel less connected to your dad because you don't have the same last name?
Oh, no. Absolutely not.
Okay, cool. Easy. Easy answer.
I was going to add before that it does feel good to be kind of bucking the patriarchy in that way.
Totally.
So if you guys have a kid, is it going to be a Carter?
It's such a good question. What do you think, Emily?
My family last name is Cohn until about 2 generations ago, because my great uncle wanted to go to dental school and they didn't let Jews into dental school. So he changed his name to
Wow.
Carter.
Wow.
And so it's a kind of new name. So I don't know if there's like deep familial connection to it necessarily. But I like the way it sounds. I think it is strong. And
And June Carter?
June Carter.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Johnny Cash's
Carter.
wife.
Yeah. So many Carters.
Yeah.
Beyonce.
Yeah.
Good Carters. Yeah.
It's a good name.
Yeah, but I also feel similarly like just absorbing my husband's name because that's what people do doesn't feel quite right either. And picking up a new name altogether, that's kind of a new thing. Hyphenating, that's a whole other can of worms. It just feels sticky. It doesn't feel obvious to me.
I don't know what we're gonna do, but I will die on the hill of no hyphenating. Just passing the buck to the next generation.
Yeah.
So
If you guys were going to have a hybrid last name, what would it be? Karecki? Jarker? Jarter?
yeah, Jarker, and this is Emily Jarker, and this is our daughter Esme Jarker, named after our favorite guest we've ever had on our show.
If you name your kid Esme, I will be so honored.
If you name your kid Esme, I will be honored because you're not Esme, Dad.
Yeah, but he helped choose it. You know.
Yeah.
He's like the executive producer. You're just the, you're just
Exactly.
the actor.
Sure.
Esme is an awesome name. I do
It
really
is.
like Esme.
PF, I am curious if someone is listening to this and they're like, maybe we're not that connected to marriage, but we want to be together for a long time and we're thinking about having a kid. Like, what are some things that they might have to start thinking about? Like, if it's like school pickups or hospital visits or like traveling, like, what are just some of the bureaucratic stuff that you might suggest people look into?
Yeah, I mean, there was never any trouble, like for instance, with school pickups, they always take a list of names of adults that are allowed to pick up the child. And so even if that isn't a parent, if it's like a caregiver, they'll still be on the list. So that was never any kind of red tape that I had to worry about. When I was visiting Maya in the hospital a few times, nobody ever questioned the fact that I had a different last name. Also, we live in San Francisco where there's a little more tolerance for that kind of thing. So maybe if we lived in, Missouri or someplace, it would be different. But I've never had any kind of problem. Sorry if my answers are totally boring, but
I mean, listen, people have so many misconceptions how difficult it is. And a lot of people will go and undertake this unbelievable, life-changing, legal, logistical thing because they're like, I don't think I'll be allowed to, do X, Y, and Z. Yeah, what if I can't pick my kid up from school? So hearing someone say that was not an issue, even if it's a boring answer, it's like nice that it's boring. That's really helpful for people.
yeah. I mean, the last time we traveled to Europe with her was when she was 2. So it was 10 years ago. Pretty sure we brought her birth certificate just in case we had any issues. But she has a passport. I mean, she has actually 2 because she has dual citizenship. She's got her German passport and her American one.
Esme, you have German citizenship through your mom, Maya, and PF, you do not have German citizenship.
Correct. I don't think I would get citizenship. I might be able to work there, live there if we got married. But because we haven't seriously looked into moving there yet, I mean, things keep getting worse and worse in this country. So, we always say, we have an out, we can move to Europe. But I don't know if I could work there. If I could work there and we needed to get married for me to do it, then I would.
Let's talk about this acknowledgement of paternity, which is a form that we learned about in doing some research on here. And it sounds like you indeed had to fill out something called acknowledgement of paternity. What is that? And tell us about that
It
experience.
was just a 1-page form that they gave me at the hospital. And probably because we weren't married, they needed me to affirm that I was the biological father of the child.
Not a hard form. You're just in person. You
No,
say, "Yeah, I'm the
I
father."
think I signed and dated it. Yeah, there was nothing more to it than that.
Wow. So this is for you, PF.
Okay.
Legal marriage offers protection, financial protection for the partner who is losing out on more earnings during the course of the building of the family. Like some people have described marriage as a business transaction where 2 people say, hey, I'm going to buy into the health of the unit and I'm going to raise the children and I'm going to make the money, or I'm going to do these things, you're going to do those things. And in a situation where someone is like losing out on their prime earning years or not continuing to advance at work, in the event that the couple separates and the family business unit becomes split, one person is more financial risk than the other. Did you and Maya think about that as a factor when you were deciding to not get married? Like her being at risk of not having as much financial protection, being in an unmarried state as she would have if you guys were legally married?
Not really. I mean, we didn't have any discussion about it. And I think the assumption has always been that we're going to treat the relationship as though it's forever. There was no need to discuss that. I don't think any of us really thinks about what happens if the family breaks up and any kind of legal protection, because it just doesn't seem like it's going to happen.
If it were to happen, do you feel that you would extend financial support to Maya, even though you don't have a...
Yeah, I mean, we would be, I know I would be fair about everything, and we'd have, discussions about how to best serve Esme.
Esme, in the event that your parents were to separate, do you feel like they would continue to take care of you and they would continue to be nice to each other, even if they were not maybe supposed to be together anymore?
Oh, absolutely. They would take care of me. I think they would be pretty nice to each other. Yeah, I guess it depends on what caused them to snap.
Esme, do you have any Do you want to get married? Is that something you hope for your life or care about?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I just think
Mhm.
weddings are so fun. I would just do it for the wedding. And I think,
Mhm.
getting married, it's such a special day for, you. I don't know. It feels so
Mhm.
special to me.
Yeah, it's kind of this beautiful thing. Like, in a way, I reject the traditionalness of it. It feels like this is just sort of an old-timey institution that doesn't really make sense anymore. And then in other ways, like, my whole lineage did this. All my grandparents and great-grandparents and great-great-grandparents, like, all went through this ritualizing their connection and, like, having people show up and clap and take pictures and be there for it. Even if you're not even signing a document, it's just like a nice day and a nice moment.
Okay, Esme, can you talk us through, like, quote unquote, your dream wedding?
Ooh, this
Ooh,
is such a fun question.
good question.
I haven't thought about this the whole time. I would want it to be somewhere really pretty, maybe with nature around. I would want it to be outdoors.
Do you imagine wearing like a white dress?
Yeah, I would probably wear a white dress. I don't know what the rest of it would look like.
What kind of cake do you want for your wedding?
I want one with a ton of layers.
Do you envision getting married at a specific age?
Too young would be under 25, and too old would be over 40.
Okay. So you have a nice 15-year window. Yeah.
I feel like a couple things I'm taking away from this are that you can have, like, kids of unmarried parents can feel just as stable and loved and protected and cared for as kids from married families. And in fact, there can be pain in married families that does not exist in unmarried families. It's almost like not a factor in terms of the health and safety and care of a family. It's pretty easy to build a family without getting legally married. People talk a lot about the roadblocks there, but it doesn't seem like there are that many, at least in the place that we live. And that legal marriage does have some handy benefits, but again, there are some workarounds or protections in place separate from that. So marriage should be a choice you're making out of a desire to be married rather than a fear of some intense bureaucratic monster that is waiting in the background.
Esme, why do you feel like you're so stable in your understanding of your parents' relationship? What is it about your family that makes you feel like they're not going to break apart at any moment?
They tell each other I love you all the time, and they kiss and they hug all the time. I don't know. They just feel like a really stable. They do fight, but they make up, and I feel like they're a stable, happy couple overall.
Okay, my question to you guys is, even through this conversation about getting married, do you feel like you're missing out by one of you not proposing to the other?
That's an interesting idea. Emily, what do you think?
I loved that you said that you proposed once and then she said she'd think about it and proposed again. It does feel like an instigator of we're solidifying this and we're asking a big question and we're moving this into something that feels more long term. I think if Max and I just continue dating like this and we never have a conversation like that, or we never broach a contract together, or one of us never proposes, it will feel a little stalled. But I think you can not be married and be deepening that commitment. But I think something like proposing does feel sweet and important. But I don't connect with getting on a knee or a diamond ring. That is not something I yearn for or would want at all. I would feel sorely misunderstood if Maxon did that to me.
Okay, all right. Cancel our afternoon plans.
At Jared's.
We're going to Jared's.
But I think that asking each other to spend our lives together in our own way sounds really sweet, but I don't think our life would be sad without that. But I think it was missing something if we didn't have a moment like that.
Maybe you can plan a simultaneous proposal.
Yeah, we make friendship bracelets.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I had someone in college I know propose to her partner, now husband. I thought that was cool. I want to be cautious of not just flipping the script and doing it in the opposite way.
There are so few rituals I have in my life as a pretty non-religious person. I think it's fun to do these things that mean something. I do think that there's an inflection point in our relationship called, are we choosing to be life partners together? Or are we not choosing to be life partners together? And that's a cool thing to commemorate. And I don't want to give any money to the, nasty diamond company. All right, this is a question for Esme. Esme, we're making a video for our future child, and we are not going to be legally married. This is the situation. Can you talk to our future child and give her advice, specifically as someone whose parents are not married? Share your experience and knowledge. What would you say to her?
It doesn't feel like a thing that I can give advice about because it hasn't changed my life that much. I would maybe like give her advice about if anyone teased her about it. I would say, like, first of all, I would hug her. I would hug her and I would say, it's okay. That is not a problem at all. There's nothing wrong with that at all. They're all jerks. Screw them. You know, if that ever happens again, tell someone you trust. This is nice. Thank you for asking that question because I just feel like that's a good thing to think about.
All right, this is something we ask all of our guests, and we're excited to ask PF. And Esme, do you think we should get married?
You go first, Dad.
I would say make a pros and cons list. Also, imagine yourself 20 years from now saying, oh, thank God we got married, or good thing we didn't get married, and see if either of those situations comes more naturally.
Imagine yourself in 20 years randomly and see where your mind takes you. If you picture like a scenario where like, this is my wife, or if you picture yourself not married, or think about like the reason that you would get married. Would it be like for fun, or would it be like because you think it would strengthen your relationship, and the reasons you would not get married? And if that makes sense.
Well, we learned a lot in the conversation, so I think it's helping our pro and con list. Maxim, before we go, do you mind just sharing like one or two takeaways for you?
Yeah, some takeaways for me. Everyone talks about, oh, like your children will feel like you're going to break apart at any moment if you're not legally married. That's just so not the case. Esme, you're one of the most well-adjusted, stable, young people I've ever met in my entire life, and your parents
Oh
are
my
not
gosh,
married.
that's such a compliment. Thank you so much.
It really is. I at various times was forgetting that you're 12 because you're so well-spoken and you're just like a wise person. I want to have a kid just like you.
Aww.
Like people
That's
who
so
are,
sweet.
I'm so impressed. It feels like you have a wonderful home life. So the people who are saying, oh, like you need to like tough it out and just do this marriage thing because it's traditional and your kids are going to thank you. I know so many people whose parents are married and their kids are miserable because their parents hate each other. And it's so much
Exactly.
more about what you described, Esme, about, hey, like they're nice to each other. They work through their conflicts. They like model good behaviors. They talk about the future. They are smart, well-adjusted people. Like it's about being smart and well-adjusted and caring about each other and doing the best you can. And it's not about the legal thing. It's about the relationship. Other takeaways, like I don't know. I love, Esme, also that you're like love marriage as an idea and as a tradition. We have these great opportunities to make fun things happen, and let's not throw the baby out with the bathwater. Like maybe there's a wedding to be had without.
Whoa, I've never heard that idiom before. Let's not throw the baby anywhere.
It's very evocative idiom. I'm so glad you reacted to it. Yeah,
I'm
very,
so sorry
very
I've never
evocative.
said that to you, Esme, because it's a common expression.
Okay, well, today you were years old when you learned that expression.
Yes.
and
That's right.
It's going to stay with you. Anyway, I just like that you are the child of unmarried parents who is interested in getting married, but not for any reason having to do with, oh, I think it'll make me feel more connected to my partner. It's like, I want to have a sweet party with all my friends. That is like a way better reason to do it than, oh, I think it's going to protect me. Because if you're in a relationship with someone and the only thing that's protecting you from separating is the pain of a divorce, you might not want to be married to that person anyway. So
Yeah.
That is the end of our chat with Esme and PF. That was so fun. And I love seeing the love between them and the love in their family and getting to know more about Esme and her life and her relationship to her parents' relationship.
yeah, she's straight up the coolest 12-year-old I've ever met. That's
Yep.
no exaggeration.
We're going to kidnap her.
She's so funny. She has such a funny little way, and she's very light and free, and she's awesome. And PF, you and Maya are obviously doing something right. That's really cool.
Totally.
Okay, so what do we learn here? At least in the case, this one specific case, being unmarried does not mess up your kids and make them feel like you're more likely to break apart at any second. That's obvious. Esme, she felt very stable in her parents' relationship. She feels that her parents are in it for the long haul. They kept saying that. I'm really happy that that's the data point that we're getting here. Like that makes me happy. It confirms something that I was hoping, which is it doesn't really matter if you have a contract with the government. What matters much more is how you show up for each other every single day. And Esme is incredible and turned out incredible and will continue being incredible. And so much of it has to do with the partnership that her parents has and the stability she has. And it's got nothing to do with the piece of paper. So
It reminds me of this phenomenon of like, oftentimes people are looking to other relationships and there's like a shorthand for them of like, oh, they're in an open relationship, therefore it's like flawed, or they're not actually in love, or it's going to end, or they're not married, therefore they might not be in it for the long haul, or they are kind of keeping one foot in, one foot out. But really, it's the more like deeper things like love and communication and care that are the real markers. And we're like kind of looking for these like fake markers when we look at people's relationships from the outside. I was struck by how Esme was still really stoked about marriage and getting married. And for me, this meant like doing things your way as a couple is not necessarily going to like brainwash your kid in any direction, either for marriage or against marriage. And if you just parent them to be independent thinkers and feel really free in themselves, they're going to land wherever they land. And you're not robbing them of the opportunity to have a loving marriage if that's what they desire.
another sort of takeaway here, this myth of school pickups. Oh, like if you're not married, are they going to like release your kid to school? We've heard that from a couple people. School pickups are not a problem at all. A babysitter can come pick up a kid. An aunt or an uncle can come pick up a kid. They take your name, they put it on a list, they check the name on the list. You're good. You don't encounter a bunch of speed bumps because you're not married picking your kid up from school. Then another thing, we learned that if you are going to have a child and not be married, there's just one form that you have to fill out at the hospital that confirms that you are claiming paternity of the child. If you're married, you don't have to do that form because you automatically have paternity because of the marriage. And it's called a certificate of paternity. Probably takes 60 seconds to fill out. So that should not be a speed bump for anyone.
I feel like people point to emotional complications like how your kid is perceiving your relationship, how their classmates are perceiving it, how the outside world perceives it. And then there are the logistical things people talk about like paternity and traveling internationally and school pickup. So I'm glad we got to touch on all of it. And it sounds like the family hasn't traveled that much internationally, but the one time that they did, it was not a problem for them.
Yeah.
So I'd love to dig into this more, but it sounded like no big deal.
Yeah. Last takeaway here, PF, Maya, and Esme, they don't seem to be encountering much social headwinds or flack from the community because of this alternative family structure.
Obviously, this is a Bay Area couple, and we live in a city with a lot of freedom and different loving structures of families and couples. So we'll just say that maybe this isn't true for every couple everywhere, but feels particularly true for couples here. There's just a lot of unusual structures around us, and I can imagine more social flack in other places that are less modern in these ways.
Yeah, definitely. So, Emily, having just completed this interview, where do you fall on the marriage, no marriage spectrum? Are you putting a pebble in the bucket of getting married or a pebble in the bucket of not getting married? Where do you fall?
I don't think this one moved me that much in either direction. I guess if I'm going to put a pebble in a bucket, it's not marriage. But I think I kind of already had this take that people were amplifying and kind of making it more dramatic in terms of like having a kid without being a married couple. I sort of had that take already, but I'm happy to hear it from a family that's really doing it. So I would say a small pebble in the bucket of not getting married. Feels like it does not make or break your family. What about you?
I too will be placing a small pebble in the bucket of not getting married. This conversation and some previous conversations have been showing me it's just not that big a deal. If anyone's out there and you are the child of an unmarried couple and you grew up feeling like my parents are going to break apart any second, my life is illegitimate because my parents are not married, please let us know and we'll have a chit chat and we can get that perspective on the show, which would be really good for you, me, all of our listeners. That'd be really nice. And we can continue to improve the global conversation around legal marriage. And by the way, in our next episode, you'll hear some of this.
So it was awful. He was just screaming like, I know she's here. I know she's here. And we couldn't give him any information. And he just sat down on the chair in the waiting room and just wept. I was like, why can't we just let this poor guy see his girlfriend?
Should We Get Married is an original series by Easily Wowed and Bad Cooley Productions. This episode was created by me, Maxon Jarecki,
And me, Emily Carter.
and our producer, Ramoy Phillip.
Theme music is the song Fake Romantic by the band Melt.
Sound design and mixing by Ramoy Phillip.
There's so many of you out there who are asking these same questions, and we don't all have to investigate marriage on our own. So subscribe to Should We Get Married and learn with us as we make our decision.
See you next time.
Bye.